Now, Rainbow Six Siege lore has been a major focal point of my channel for a long time now, and when I am taking a look at the older titles, we're actually playing through the original Rainbow Six right now, when mapping out this timeline, there is a few things which do get a bit confusing, and it has led to a lot of questions from you, the viewers, of when does it actually take place? When does this stuff happen? When Rainbow Six Siege was developed and launched, it did have lore, albeit minimal, but it gave a reason for the stuff that was happening, and it wasn't initially developed to be the main platform for the story being told forward. Siege was a new thing in the Rainbow Six franchise. It was solely focused on PvP, and although when you compare it to the older games, it is actually kind of the black sheep, it has done Ubisoft a lot of good, and has resulted in one of, if not their most popular game of all time. So when we start to look at Rainbow Six Siege lore from a story standpoint and how they've continued to develop it over the years, a big question was always, how does this link to the older games? Is this even canon to the main universe? Which we would go on to learn it is. Although Rainbow Six Siege may have never been developed to be the main storyteller, and maybe it was even initially conceived as a spin-off and not necessarily canon, but due to its longevity and how long it's been going on for, it has now became that next major part in the story, and Ubisoft started to put a focus on that after Siege started to ramp up popularity. Now, they never really focused on it, but there was always teases to the past of Rainbow. When Glaz got his changes all the way back in year 2, they did reference the fact that this was thanks to Kure Galanos, who now in year 9 is a playable operative as Scopos. But it has been quite recently where they truly have been starting to link Rainbow Six Siege to its past. The reveal of Deimos gave us this mystery of who is this figure who is claiming to be an ex-Rainbow operative and where they came from. Now, we would go on to learn that this would actually be Gerald Morris, an original Rainbow operative who appeared all the way at the very beginning of the first Rainbow Six game and its succeeding game onwards. And then in year 9, we would go on to actually get him as a playable operator, although still being a bad guy, and like I was mentioning as well, we also got Kure as Scopos. And so a lot of that would make it seem that everything which happened pre-Rainbow Six Siege is officially canon. But then when we start to look at timelines, stuff gets a bit messy. For example, the birth dates for both Kure and Gerald are different from their original bios in the older game. As well as this, in the comic book for Operation Deadly Omen, Ash's birthday was stated to be in 1990. Us knowing that Ash is 33 years old, that would push that current date to being 2023. However, it was originally stated that Ash's birthday was actually 1983. Which would then mean, as of Operation Deadly Omen, if operators were to age, Ash would have originally been 40. Now, this opens up quite a large can of worms if we start to move birth dates around without establishing an order before it. Because either two explanations could have been made here. It could have been that Siege actually takes place 7 years before we originally thought it would, meaning that this took place in 2015. But due to Ash's file presenting both an age and birth year, it tells us what year it is by adding them together. So it does confirm that the events of Operation Deadly Omen do take place in 2023. So it has been established that with both Kure, Deimos, and Ash, that their birth years are 7 years after we originally were told they were. Gerald going from 1965 to 1972, Kure going from 1975 to 1982, and Ash going from 1983 to 1990. Now, when we start to take a look at this though, it does get a bit messy, so I'm going to try and give an explanation as to what I think has happened. So when it comes to bringing back the older operatives, it is clear that Ubisoft have tweaked their birthdays a little bit. It doesn't necessarily change a lot about the past games. A lot of the older games still work exactly the same, despite some operatives now being 7 years younger than they were originally stated to be, and it's just to give them that creative freedom to use them in current storytelling without them getting too old. The issue doesn't necessarily matter with Kure and Gerald. They can work exactly the same, despite being 7 years younger. There is an issue though when we start to look at Ash, however. So let's say that she was born in 1990, and it was only her, Kure, and Gerald who have their birthdays changed. Well, if we assume that they are using this logic and also making every other operator 7 years younger than they were originally stated to be, that causes a lot of issues. For example, Thatcher is stated to be born in 1990. 1961. A major part of his story is that he took part in the real-life Iranian embassy siege, a part of Operation Nimrod, exactly what his elite skin is based on. Now, due to the timing of his birth and when this event took place, that means that he would have been a fresh 18 years old. Quite a young age, but still within the barriers to be a part of the SAS, and would make complete sense. Now, if we start to use the logic that the operators are born 7 years after they were originally stated to be, that would mean that Thatcher was born in 1968, meaning by the time of Operation Nimrod, he was 11 years old. An 11-year-old Thatcher did not partake in the Iranian embassy siege. And I think this is an issue when you start to introduce time and a year in a live service game. And I would like to see Ubisoft make some form of establishment here. I think there could be some reason that the person who illustrated and designed this comic book page for Ash simply made a mistake. They saw that her age was said to be 33 years old and simply deducted 33 years off the current year to give us a new birthday. But I, for one, and this may be a hot take, would actually like these operators to age. I think it's perfectly fine to show these operators getting older without a way for it to affect the gameplay. I'm going to take Call of Duty as an example here, and one of their most prominent characters in the Black Ops franchise, Frank Woods. Now, Woods has been seen throughout many different points in history. We have his iconic look from when he is in Vietnam, we have the older version in Black Ops 2's later missions where we see him in a wheelchair, and in Black Ops 6 we actually see him in his early days in the wheelchair. But in playable in-game, we actually have his pre-injury version simply playable as an operator, because gameplay doesn't always have to go hand in hand with story. And listen, I think it's fine if you want to go down the Simpsons route of simply these characters never age and this is the story we are presenting, but I don't really like that in my opinion. Because at least with Call of Duty, with characters like Frank Woods aging, they still can tap into any point in history of this guy's life. I mean, look at the Black Ops games which have came out. We've seen him younger, then older, then pre-wheelchair, then post-wheelchair. We've actually been bouncing around this timeline in a non-chronological order, tapping into different parts of his life and history. I understand Rainbow Six Siege is a little bit different because they don't really have a new game every year to change stuff like that. It is the same game going forward, and maybe one day in the future we'll get to see what these operators do look like when they truly do age in a different title, but as long as they're tied to the live service version of Siege, they simply won't age. But at the end of the day, it just seems like it's going to be one of those things where the age and the date of births and the progression of time is something we're simply going to have to look past. It won't be the first story in history to have to do this, and it certainly will not be the last. I definitely think it's one of those things that you're just going to look past until we actually get an official timeline from Ubisoft, which would be really appreciated to help understand a lot of things. So yeah, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about this timeline? What do you think about the fact that time doesn't really matter, and is it something that you can overlook? It definitely is something that you have to do in a lot of stuff, so why should Rainbow Six Siege be no different? Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. I'll catch you all later. I love you all. Stay safe. Peace.